my friends. Welcome to the International Forum Orders of Love for Success in Life. I'm super excited to introduce my guest, Shinsuke Inoue. Shinsuke was an engineer in automotive and aerospace industry before he attended Hellingers Family Constellation seminar in Hong Kong in 2011. The insights he received from Bert and Sophie Hellinger during the seminar changed his life completely. In 2015, Shinsuke organized Bert and Sophie Hellinger's seminar in Japan. And 2 years later, he started working for Hellinger School in Germany. Today, he is teaching the principles of family constellations in Mexico. Hi, Shinsuke. So good to see you.
Hi.
How are you today?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Thank you.
It's been a while since we see each other in Bad Reichenhall. When I think about that, we met so many times, but I had never asked you the story about how you arrived to the field of the family constellations. And now when I introduce you and mention that it was a period of time when something happened in your life and you decided to attend Hellinger seminar in Hong Kong, I'm really curious. So what has happened? What brought you there? Would you like to share that with us?
Sure. Yes, of course, I had, like many people who reached to the family constellation, I had my personal issue, which is I lost my father when I was around 30, and I suffered from severe depression myself. Then I started to study many kind of psychotherapy or gestalt therapy, and then I eventually I found the family constellation, and I thought that I had to meet Bert Hellinger, and so I went there.
Did you participate in the seminar as a part of the audience, or did they set up constellations for you?
It was a big workshop, like with 250 participants. I was only Japanese. The rest of people were all Chinese, Hong Kongese, Taiwanese, but unfortunately, Bert and Sophie spoke in English, so I could hear, I could understand.
So you were the part of the audience, right?
Yes, I was just a participant.
And as a participant, you received so many insight that it changed your life.
Yes.
I'm curious what has happened. Can you share at least some of those insight that you received from your very first seminar?
Yes, it was very impressive. I didn't know how Bert and Sophie work in the constellation, but I knew about family constellation. I was in the course of the family constellation in Japan, learning about family constellation. It was new for me, the way they do the family constellation. It was a 6 days workshop, and I think the fourth day, suddenly Sophie chose me, and I could have the constellation and for my own issue. And then I had a very long constellation, like 1 hour and 40 minutes.
Wow.
And I felt that the constellation showed me everything that happened in my life, like watching in a mirror.
And this realization moved something within you, right? So what happened? This, when you were able to see everything, what effect it had on you?
The constellation showed that my suffering, my feeling was related to the event in the war in the past, in the Second World War, where my grandfather, maternal grandfather, went participated as a soldier. Of course, at that time in Japanese men, they were forced to go to battlefield as a soldier, and my grandfather as well. So my grandfather went to Philippines, but he survived the war and returned to Japan. But what happened in the war also has a consequences in the family of the soldier, one family of the returned soldier. So I was feeling that consequences.
That's what you discovered in Hong Kong in 2011.
Yes, because every movement that representative shows in the constellation look like what I was experiencing in the daily life.
Amazing.
So
that's just an amazing story, and thank you for sharing this story. My next question would be, probably we should help our audience to understand what is family constellation? What is that about? How do you perceive this work, especially if you already had an experience with family constellation in Japan, and then these new insights in Hong Kong in 2011, for people who know nothing about family constellations? What is that? How would you describe it?
Family constellation for me, it's a way to show us what is happening. It's like an experiment in a science in what we did in the school. Like when we have a magnet and put the paper on, and then the powder, iron powder put, we can see the pattern of the magnetic field, right?
Yes.
So each one of the iron powder can be compared with representatives. So we can see the pattern, our relationship in a group, like a family, and we can see how it's working, the relationship. So we can see sometimes, so someone is very aggressive or someone is depressive. We can see why this phenomenon is happening, and what will be the consequences of that.
That's a great example. I had never thought about that, but that's your comparison. Just amazing. Thank you. Yeah, interesting. I know that you working on a research, and the topic of this research is schizophrenia as a disease of families and nations.
Okay.
I know this topic is very painful for some families and controversial for others. Not everyone is open to talk about that, but that's important because if people suffer from this disease, and people would be willing to know, of course, more about causes of this disease. And also, you included the topic of autistic children, right, in this research. What motivated you? Why you choose this topic?
Okay. Yes. Let me explain that. Because, first of all, the schizophrenia. I was never diagnosed as a schizophrenia, and none of the people in my family had diagnosed of the schizophrenia. Okay, but in that constellation, in the first constellation with Bert and Sophie, it showed the movement dynamics of the schizophrenia in my family. So we could know that we have in my family there is a background of the schizophrenia. Bert Hellinger also pointed out. He mentioned that my mother should be schizophrenic. I understand because it's a little bit strange because someone who has no diagnosis, but it showed the tendency, it showed the pattern. And so I started to learn what is schizophrenic from that point. Bert Hellinger explained in the family who someone has schizophrenia, there might be a murder in the past before. So there is a perpetrator and a victim. The descendant, like a son or grandchild, have to accumulate the both side of the energy or both side of the feeling. This can be a conflict inside one person. So I understood the schizophrenia, like original Latin word, schizo is a separating, and phren is a hurt or hurt, right? So like separating mind. And I was feeling that exactly. I was feeling like the feeling of the perpetrator and the victim at the same time. And it was my suffering.
Wow. So you could literally feel this separation within you into two person that actually do not accept each other, or like you use an example with magnet, they push each other in different directions. Yeah, when we bring plus and plus, minus and minus, and just pushing apart. And this is on energetic level. So you could feel this energy without ability to explain what's going on, but it was very disturbing. Is there a way to help, or is there a way how to bring these two parts together so they would coexist and let person to feel whole.
The first thing that I had that the constellation helped me is to recognize this pattern, this background. For example, since childhood, I was feeling that I could communicate with my mother. I couldn't feel that I could have a common feeling with my mother. I understand also this is the effect of this dynamics. My grandfather, who went to the war in the Philippines, there was a very severe battle, and many died there on both sides. Okay?
Right.
And fortunately, my grandfather returned, but he was one of two survivors in his original group of soldiers. He didn't mention anything about the war, even to a family, but the soldier naturally had to kill someone, right? And we people who didn't go to the war, we don't consider so much about killing someone. When we talk about the war, we talk about the experience as a victim, but not many people talk about the perpetrating act. But perpetrating act also has consequences. When I feel, as my grandfather, when he had to kill someone, he had to kill himself too. A half part of him was dead. And this creates the origin of the schizophrenia, because he killed someone who is same as him, as a human.
Mm-hmm. I see.
This has consequences on the family.
So, do I understand correctly that family constellations can bring some these invisible dynamics to the light, make it visible, so person is able to meet either victim or perpetrator. So in other words, victim and perpetrator able to meet each other during the family constellations and reconcile. Mm-hmm. And this reconciliation can bring peace and relaxation into the system, into the family dynamics. And in this way, it will not affect future family members, or at least not so severe affect family members.
Mm-hmm. Okay, when we are talking about the topic of the war, it's a big thing. You know, we are all working until now, I think, but in our soul level or our consciousness, because we all have ancestors who came through the war. I see in the society also we had the effect not only in my family. For example, in Japan, we have a lot of people, mostly men, who cannot leave their home. He stays all the time in their house, and they cannot get socialized. I have also the feeling for them, because I had also the time of the suffering depression, and I had to stay that like that. If we break the magnet, the North Pole and South Pole still exist. Our family field also works like that. If someone is excluded, someone else had to represent the other part, other missing part. For example, my grandfather, if he killed someone, the victim would be a very influential person for our family, very important person for our family, because he contributed that my grandfather came back to Japan to continue the family. And so he is, in a way, a part of my family, the victim. But Hellinger also explained that the victim can be adopted to the family of the perpetrator, no? And vice versa. So the children or grandchildren feel that feeling, and will represent this person in the form of suffering, like depression.
Right. What I hear now, that we are all connected.
Yes.
And
yes.
It's like a butterfly effect.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a ripple effect. There is no such thing as a separate act when someone committed. Whatever people do, wherever they are, it will affect many, many, many other people. And even it go over the generations. And family constellations can show this big picture.
Yes.
And we can see that this kind of tiny war affected the whole world around. I'm not talking about world wars. I'm talking just about some events that we assume are not connected to anything. There is no such thing. Because this interview is dedicated to Bert Hellinger, and we focus on orders of love for success in life. I would love to hear from you. What do you think? If people learn more about conscience, good and bad conscience, if people learn more about orders of love, learn more about those laws, universal laws that govern humans' relationship, would it help people to bring more peace, or bring reconciliation, or improve their personal life, or be more successful in life? What do you think about this knowledge?
Yes. So what is challenging in our life is when we have a conflict with someone. And when we have a conflict, there is something in the background. And usually we don't know that, what is in the background. Conscience also, the original etymology of the conscience is con, like in Spanish. Science is know, to know, to know. So knowing together about something is a consequence. And knowing together is about what is good and what is bad, or many things, but include the sense of good and bad. For example, a child, each time he does something wrong, a mother or father got angry, and they will learn what is good and what is bad without being said anything. Like that, in the society, we also learn what is good and what is bad. Also, the conscience depends on the time. You know, during the war, killing was good, something good things that they had to do for their society where they belong. But now, the killing people is not good, of course. But the difference can have influence to another time through our feeling, because the conscience often is not described by the word, but carried by the feeling. Mm-hmm. That's why children can feel the conscience of the all time, and it has a problem. It became a problem in nowadays, and so we all are kept by some sort of conscience, and if we recognize this, we are kept in some sort of conscience. We can also see the conscience that other has. Then we have a space to understand each other.
Yes. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for this conversation, for sharing your stories. It's really impressive. Is there anything else you would like to share? Is there anything else you would like to tell our audience about Orders of Love, about Family Constellations?
Yes. What we talk here happens all by love, right? We are connected to our grandfather, grandmother, parents, and until the enemies. So in our family, we cannot exclude someone or some quality, like in a magnet field. Mm-hmm. We can not exclude that. So the things that Family Constellation would help us is making us easier to include what was excluded before.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we are all working on that way. We still will be working. And I don't know if there is end or not, but we are still working. So in a way, we could say we are all in the service of doing reconciliation and to include someone else. And this will help to make it in order our life in the order of love.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, for your wonderful examples. And I hope we will meet again soon and talk more about probably autistic children, because we didn't have time to talk about that today. But I'm sure it's a very important topic for many. But today I wish you all the best and see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yes. Bye. Thank you, Victoria.